The case against Gerard Ackerman has once again highlighted the abuse children suffer at the hands of those they trust to protect them. At the same time, a mother was filmed having sex with her son, a story that led to much outrage. And of course, a lot of people saying that this is rape, and these are but two of the many instances where children are finding themselves enduring horrendous acts. But for how long can we continue then to be outraged and seeing very little action? Let's speak to Advocate Brenda, Madumise, who's the director at Wise Collective. Thank you so much, Advocate, for your time. More stories of crimes against children continue to shock us, but you know, when that shock has worn off and moving on to the next story, are we taking a clear stand, though, as a country against this?
Hi, good afternoon, Bongo. I don't think this country is taking a hard stand on anything. You know, we are pulled from all sorts of directions whilst you're grappling with water shortages, electricity blackouts. You have women who are facing domestic violence. You have children who are violated by those who they are supposed to trust. So I think the outrage is for the moment, and then we move on to the next thing. So until the country realizes that crimes and the violation of sexual violent crimes, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment are at the height of why this country should be declared a national disaster. You know, it's quick for us to move to electricity as a national crisis and a disaster, but we have had a pandemic that has been with us for many years, and every time what we do is to appease the citizens and say we've got laws, and these laws might stem this violence. Or we speak at a public forum and say the right things and hit the right notes, and we leave it at that. And that's what has happened with this power dynamic control of women's bodies. No one is willing, especially those who are in power, to wrestle with this elephant that they know impact on their privilege as men.
Sure. And, you know, when I was even listening to the president of the ANC yesterday in his capacity as a president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, saying that the Gender-Based Violence Council is going to be constituted. This is something that came out at the first Gender-Based Violence Summit. It came out again at the second one, yet here we are, we still do not have this council. Yeah.
And so when you raise those things, and I don't know how many of you listened to the president at the second summit. Remember, yes, the summit was about accountability, right? So when you account, you say to South Africans, I failed you. I failed to have the gender-based council, and here are the reasons why I failed, right? And for me to remedy that, this is what I'm going to do. What he said to us was that, we are in the process of establishing the council, not giving any confidence to all of us to say by March, by April, by June, we will have an established council. So for me, that's the laissez-faire and just the total disregard and being performative, because they think that we need to hear these things and then we move on because we think something is going to happen. And then we get outraged, and women must coalesce again, demand, when in all honesty, they as leaders of society are supposed to do what they were employed to do, that's to serve the citizens of this country, do the things that they undertake to do. And they can't continue to be forced by the courts, by people protesting, to do the basics for their citizens.
And, you know, we look at the cases that are in the public domain right now. A police officer accused of raping her own son. And you also look at Gerard Ackerman as well, and those little boys who are, have come forward with their stories in this particular regard. We talk about these cases, we listen to the facts, and we listen to what comes out, in courts. But one seldom thinks about the long-term effects that this also has on these young people.
Absolutely. And I think that's what happens with violence and sexual crimes, is that most times all of us don't have a full appreciation of the enormity of the psychological effect it has on the victims and survivors. We don't talk about it. In fact, when someone talks about it, we want to dismiss it because we think they're lying. So we have never placed ourselves in center ourselves in what a victim goes through. When victims, and I'll give you examples of many women who have been violated, sexually violated, and they have literally put it back in their minds and not spoken about it for a number of reasons. They might not be believed, and then something triggers 10 years later. Something triggers that memory, and they remember that this thing happened to me. And what do we say first? When she speaks about it, we say, why did she wait this long to talk about it? In fact, she's lying because she didn't even report it. But that's her lived experience. That's what she went through. She blocked it because she did not want to go through the part of not talking about it is trauma. That's trauma. When you don't want to talk about what has happened to you, how someone violated you, and you don't talk about it, the first thing that we ask you and demand from you is that you are lying. It didn't happen to you. Even with these boys with Ackerman, is the same. No one would have believed those boys when they spoke about it when they were young. They persisted, and no one was going to believe that boys could be violated by someone who was in a position of power and authority, who they trusted.
And I mean, when you listen to even what has come out even from some of the activists that are watching in court, and they talk about how this appears to also go into the upper echelons. But let's talk about another case that also, is very disturbing. In KwaZulu-Natal, a man accused of raping his niece, and then he apologizes in the beginning and says that he was intoxicated. They then don't involve the police even when the mother is told, and later it happens again. He's then sentenced to life imprisonment. But this is another area where children are being failed because you report it to the mother, the family talks about it and simply brushes it under the carpet without even thinking about what the child is going through, seeing this person day in and day out.
Yeah, and so our families are very good at not wanting to be embarrassed, right? We don't want people to know. It's all about it's secrecy. It's hidden. And it has been hidden for many years in our families, it's irrespective of race. It happens across all families. When something happens to children in that family, we have to keep quiet about it. When a young girl in a family comes to the mother and says, Uncle so-and-so has done this to me, the mother says, hush, my child, hush. Let's not talk about it. I'll see how I can resolve it. So you continue to silence these children. You continue to secondary victimization, because that secondary victimization, when you do that, when you stop them from telling you what has happened to them, and when you are supposed to act as a parent, as an adult, to protect them, you decide that your integrity is more important than their safety and them attending to their trauma.
And that culture of silence, really disturbing and quite prevalent in many families. But Advocate, thank you so much for your time this evening. And really one just hopes, as you say, that we stop moving from one outrage moment to another, and we forget about what we were outraged about in the beginning. It's time for action, particularly when you look at what is happening with the children. Thank you so much for your time. That's Advocate Brenda Madumise, WISE Collective Director.